So again, the kind of embryo of that Killer Came Knocking started out as, again, just a scene of, I had it. I think I was in a coffee shop or something like that, and I just had this idea about a guy that was going shopping. He's at his supermarket and he's shopping for his groceries or whatever, and he sees a man pass him in the aisle, and he thinks that this is the man who, that as a teenager killed his wife and was never caught and has grown up into this man, and he's just passed him just in a chance encounter. And I thought that's going to be my starting point. We're going to start off there, and we're going to see what happens there. And I didn't actually know there's a twist in the end of the book that I really really liked, and I thought, but I didn't see the twist coming until I was about two-thirds of the way through, and I was like, okay, this is what this is actually about. This now I kind of get it. And it's a strange thing because I think if I had outlined it and plotted it out, I don't think I would have actually got to that point. And so that it was a very strange thing that happened. It was very unsuspected, but I was so pleased when I got to that point when I was like, oh wow, that is the twist. This is actually what's happening here. And I didn't foresee that when I started writing it. So the other thing is as well, excuse me, the way that I write like I try to do like 2,000. When I started, I try to do 2,000 words a day without stop until I hit the end goal. And it doesn't always happen like that. But with that book, it did. I did it 2,000 words a day without stopping, and I got it done in about 2.5 months, the first draft, and that kind of helped me keep up that speed and keep up, and new things were being going through my head all the time, and that's kind of what helped shape it into what it eventually became, and the ending and everything. And those kind of ideas as well, the kind of they're very dark, and I'm not so sure why I'm so drawn to these kind of dark and often borderline scary. But what I'm trying to do really is I'm trying to put a reader into a situation where uh, an average person gets caught into a scenario whereby they have to do something that is really intimidating, really scary even, and they may not want to do it, but this is an average person who is now put in this predicament that's thrown their life in flux, and now we have to see what happens. And that's kind of what I want the reader to be like, the average Joe to read it and be like, oh wow, this would be really scary if this was happening to me, or what would I do, kind of thing. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do. Yeah, so Honeycomb started off again. It's a very weird thing. I was on the tube in London, and I was reading a book, and this is in the evening, so the tube wasn't as packed. And there was a lady sitting kind of diagonally opposite me, and I'm reading like this, and I had the idea that this woman was staring at me. I don't know why. And when I looked down at the book and I saw this woman, she was looking at me, but she, for lack of a kind of a better term, I don't think she was very well, you know. So she was giving me this really odd look, but it was a really kind of strange look, and I thought, okay, I'm just gonna go back to reading. I'm not gonna engage in this. And then in the corner of my eye, I could see down the other end of the carriage, there were 5 or 6 people dotted around just doing their own thing. And in my head, I thought, how weird would it be if I looked up and they were all looking at me the same way she's looking at me? And then by the time I got out of the tube station, I thought, wow, this is actually, that could kind of really spiral into something. And that was kind of what I played with. And I thought, then the next day I thought, well, what if I got on the train and it's packed in rush hour, and instead of that kind of thing, everyone's falling over themselves to give me a seat. They say, look, I've bought you a coffee, you know, everyone wants to take photos, and you'd be like, how weird would this be? And that's where it started. And then putting these strangers in, like you say, it's a classic trope where you put these strangers in a house and see where it goes. There may be an element of like the original is it House on Haunted Hill, the Vincent Price, you know, that kind of thing, and you know, that kind of thing going through my head. But the idea was just like a nice spooky setting, and I'm a sucker for a bit of, you know, bit of a spooky setting, really. So you've got the main character from Honeycomb is a young lady called Amanda, who, when she was 19, she won a reality singing competition, a bit like American Idol, and she had this one summer where she was everywhere, and she had a #1 hit single out, and everyone knows her. And what happened to her, which happens to a lot of these kind of reality singers, is that after that one blazing summer and the albums out and everything, actually she kind of falls into obscurity. And what happened was she turned into a one-hit wonder, and like is seen as a little bit of a joke for whatever reason. And I always like the idea of playing with that idea of, you get everything that you want in as much as you become this successful pop star, but then the other side of the coin is that that gets taken away from you, and now you're actually a public figure, but you're almost shamed by the magazines and by the TV as this kind of one-hit wonder, you know. And I like that idea of playing with that, and the other characters as well that get bundled together with her, they all have their own reasons for being in the house. They're, you know, they're all kind of desperate in their own way, and we find out that one is like a kind of weird failed stand-up comedian, one is like a failed actor who's very you know, he's got a lot of integrity about the art of acting, and one is like a YouTube gamer and things like that. So it was all about trying to put different walks of life together and seeing how these six people are going to clash under these weird circumstances. This was kind of a new challenge when writing this book, because it's very well to put six different characters into this strange setting, but then you have to give them something to do. If you're locking these people in there, you have to, they can't just all sit around drinking wine and talking. And the idea was that when they're taking, so the idea is that six of them are all, they're all taking a pill, but one of them is taking an experimental drug. They don't know what it does, and they don't know who's taking it. The rest are taking placebos, and the kind of driving force for the narrative is this pill, and how this pill is actually affecting what's going on in the house. And as the story progresses, you see that things are starting to get out of hand more and more and more. And I was able to kind of use this kind of, I don't know, like a narrative drive of the pill to kind of really get things out of hand and really start ramping up the discomfort and the claustrophobia around these characters, and I could really make it creepy. And that's kind of what I was starting to do. And it kind of just, each personality kind of gave me a reason for them to be creepy and for them to do something weird. And it's funny because even though I'd never written a novel like this with different characters, different personalities, all kind of confined, it was actually the easiest writing experience I've had, and probably the most fun as well. It was really fun. Everything kind of just fell into place. It was a very strange thing that I don't think I could have really done again. Like, I don't, even if I'd plotted it out, I don't know. I don't think my mind would have worked in the same way to get to all the kind of twists and turns that I did.